Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine all back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Plankton the movie. Plankton the movie is an animated musical comedy film serving as Netflix's second spin-off from the Spongebob Squarepants series, and tells the story of its titular character Plankton, who continues to obsess over taking Mr. Krabs' secret Krabby Patty recipe so that he can take over the world, but his efforts find him alienating his computer partner Karen. Eventually, Karen gets so fed up with Plankton's disrespectful behavior that she decides to split from him and take matters into her own hands, removing virtually all the metal from the town of Bikini Bottom and transforming into a huge destructive robot. Plankton is forced to team up with SpongeBob and other characters in the hopes that he can calm Karen down and win her back. Anyone who's familiar with Spongebob Squarepants, especially the last spin-off movie based on Sandy Cheeks, will know exactly how this movie proceeds. It's another SpongeBob story, albeit with a different character focus this time around, and it comes with all the fun and flaws one can expect from the franchise at this point. I have to admit, out of all the characters in the series, I was curious to see Plankton get his own story the most, and here he finally gets his dues. He's still the same wannabe, diabolical world ruler he wants to be, but it's nice to see his backstory explored in more detail so the audience can see how he became evil in the first place. Beyond that, it's also interesting to see how he has more of an anti-hero vibe instead of a flat-out villain like he usually is. Most of that has to do with other characters and events he's involved with in the movie, but it still helps him feel more unique. One can tell his voice actor Mr. Lawrence had a lot of fun in his role. Between the significant amount of dialogue he has compared to the previous spin-off, and the fact that Lawrence himself is one of the screenwriters for the movie, there's just a lot of passion put into Plankton's character, which helps carry the movie through its more mediocre parts. Plankton's computer partner Karen also gets plenty of time to shine in the spotlight too. The resentment she has toward Plankton's mistreatment of her builds to a fevered pitch, and it's hard not to feel sorry for her, even as she's clearly meant to be the antagonist of the story. I like how she transforms into different versions of herself and how their personalities conflict both with their opponents and themselves, and her relationship with Plankton is explored in great detail. I'm not sure how much of it is similar to what's presented on the show itself, but I still appreciate how the dynamic between the two keeps the story going. As with the previous spin-off, the title character isn't alone in the movie's events. Accompanying Plankton in his quest to stop Karen is the series' mainstay himself, Spongebob Squarepants. And as with the last movie, your enjoyment of this one may be affected by how much you tolerate SpongeBob's presence. Personally, I like SpongeBob as a character, and thankfully he's not quite as loud and over the top here as he was in the Sandy Cheeks story, but at the same time, I find it odd that he's given so much screen time when the focus is clearly meant to be on Plankton. It feels like the filmmakers are afraid that if they don't feature enough screen time for SpongeBob, they'll completely lose the audience's attention. Plankton has a lot of time to grow as a character in this movie, but I can only imagine how much more there would be if SpongeBob wasn't hogging as much of the limelight from him. That being said, I am glad the filmmakers gave more time for other characters this time around. This was a complaint I had in the Sandy Cheeks movie where barely anyone else was present outside of Sandy and SpongeBob, and here things are much better this time. Popular characters like Mr. Krabs, Mrs. Puff, and Pearl are no longer stuck in the background and are actually given more to do this time around. I do wish there was a bit more screen time for other characters like Patrick and Squidward, but at least they're there, and it's better than the weird human characters they featured in the last spin-off. While the characters are more or less still enjoyable, I can't say as much for the story, because the overall structure feels almost identical to the last movie. It's another case of something catastrophic happening to Bikini Bottom that could in turn affect the world, and it's up to a select few heroes to save the day. It's not that the story is bad or unwatchable, but the lack of originality hurts it in the long run. It also doesn't help that its central theme is kind of basic in scope, which is to be kind to your friends and loved ones and not be selfish. For the sake of being a kids movie, it's okay, but there's so many other examples of kids movies out there that have deeper messages behind them while still being able to appeal to everybody. The computer-generated 3D animation style also returns from the previous spin-off, and will likely be around for quite some time yet. As with before, I have issues with this style, although I will give props where it's due because this time, the movie actually features some 2D animation. The movie also remains colorful and retains the same zany atmosphere one can expect to see from the series, but a part of me wishes that the whole movie was in the same style as the show as opposed to a few sections of it. There's just something about 3D that doesn't have the same degree of expressiveness as 2D does. The trademark over-the-top physical humor remains in top form as always, most of it coming from SpongeBob as he runs around yelling and causing a ruckus. This part wears thin for me after a while, although there is a good amount of banter between Plankton and Karen to help balance things out. There's also a good amount of musical numbers sprinkled throughout the story too to add some variety. I've never been big on these songs, especially as it seems like there's more of them this time around than before, but at least they don't last too long, and they actually give an opportunity to showcase some of the more interesting effects that its 3D animation can pull off. When it gets right down to it, it's a SpongeBob movie pure and simple. For better or worse, it's pretty much what a casual fan can expect out of the series at this point. It's clearly oriented toward kids, but it still features some cute nods to the series that older fans will enjoy, like the French narrator and the contrast with live action scenes. I didn't watch the show a whole lot as a kid, but I still enjoyed it, and I am glad to see the same atmosphere more or less intact all these years later, with new stories being told to expand upon the characters. I think there is still value in the franchise, and Mr. Lawrence's passion really helps this movie a lot, but it still plays things a little too safe. Overall, Plankton the movie sets out to accomplish what its title suggests, as a story for one of SpongeBob Squarepants' most famous characters, and it does exactly that, but not much else. If you enjoy the series to a casual degree and have always wanted to see a movie exploring Plankton's backstory, or just want to watch something light with your kids, you might enjoy checking this out. There are still some issues that carry over from the last spin-off, but at the end of the day, it's a kids movie, and one that is entertaining to watch, at least in part. It probably won't win back any hardcore SpongeBob fans, but I'll always root for the character's success, along with his friends and foes. What did you think about this movie? Did you think it was a good side story for Plankton, or did you find it unnecessary instead? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Plankton the movie. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part where next time I review the German thriller Delicious. Bye bye!